The Danny Thomas Hour, usually seen at this time, will not be presented tonight so that we may bring you the following special program.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome my buddy Richard Ashley Hamilton back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, Richard.
Good to see you. I'm happy to be back. Thank you, Jonathan.
Actually, technically, I'm not a Jonathan. Not that anyone gives a shit, but that's if there's no H, then it's probably a Jonathan, like John Hickman, of course.
Of course.
But anyway,
I already learned something new today.
There you go. What are you talking about? I just told you all about Jack Webb's radio shows beyond Dragnet.
It's true. I know. I'm going to get on that. I'm going to cut this off early, actually, to go. Was it Pat Novak?
Pat Novak for hire, my man. Even Moonstone Books even made a comic book of Pat Novak for hire. That was hilarious.
Well, I will definitely check out because I have a bunch of their Kolchak comics, which I kind of love. So I could see that being a good fit.
Richard, we have to, at our next conversation, go into detail of our love for Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Oh, let's do it.
Oh, my God.
It was a huge, huge influence on Scoop. I often say our main character, Sophie, is like a Carla Kolchak. There you go. Reporter, investigating supernatural crimes. She doesn't have the snazzy seersucker suit and little hat, but she does have her lanyards and stuff, which are meant to be sort of like Darren McGavin always had, like the crisscrossing cameras and stuff. So anyway.
Oh yeah, no, and no, dude, don't kid yourself. I know the reporters do wear their credentials like that. Absolutely. I mean, I speak from newsroom experience for many years. So no, you're right about that. That's hilarious, man. Very cool. And Scoop is great. Now you're on volume 3 of Scoop.
Volume 3 just came out a couple months ago. We're working on volume 4 right now. And same art team as before. Pablo Andres is doing the art. He's awesome. He just gets better and better every volume. And he's pretty damn great to begin with. And we have Simon Robbins is coloring the book again, but he's being joined by someone else named Rebecca Good. She's also terrific. And volume 3 is, I think, kind of like our most sort of personal and emotional story, although we have some big developments. It ends on kind of a big cliffhanger for Sophie. And volume 4 picks up there and starts to really kind of pays off all the mysteries we've been building since volume 1.
Very cool, man. Well, Mad Cave and Maverick sent me a trailer for Scoop, and let's play it and let the video audience take a gander at scenes from Scoop. Very cool.
I'm
Very,
impressed.
very cool.
When
Yeah.
the news breaks, she fixes it. Thank you, Maverick. And thank you to Maya Lopez, who kind of oversaw the making of that trailer. And I think she did a great job.
Was that for the first volume?
That was for the first volume. Yeah.
Because Sophie's now she's no longer an intern at the station.
She's some slight spoilers. She quits as an intern in volume 2, but in volume 3 kind of is sort of like Godfather 3 pulled back in there. And kind of her status as an intern and like what it means to be a reporter and in journalism, like in 2025 with social media and fake news and deep fakes. That is all what volume 4 really is about. So but it was kind of cool seeing that trailer again, because I'm seeing all these things from volume 1 that we are hopefully paying off in volume 4. And I think I caught at least one thing that I've screwed up and now need to fix in volume 4. So thank you for that too, John.
Well, it's all right, man. And you read my mind, because I was wondering when this story would address the way journalism has changed. I mean, it is amazing. And goddamn, man, I was telling you off the air, I got downsized a couple of years ago for my last broadcast job. It's a different world. It is there was social media, and there was, hey, you ought to put that story online or whatever. Now it is an imperative. It's part of the job. And that's just what traditional media is doing to catch up to what's happening online. And it's fascinating.
It is. And it's weird because I was just today sort of writing this back matter thing for volume 4, which is kind of like, where did Scoop come from? And I interned at CNN when I was a teenager. I think I mentioned that on here. My first day on the job was the day Johnny Versace got murdered in Miami. It was pretty intense first day, like real baptism by fire. But yeah, everything has changed, and not just technologically. I mean, we were still using like tapes, like record stuff, and it was very. I mean, there were cell phones, but there were the brick phones. Nobody was using pagers and payphones, and so on that level, it's changed. But just the immediacy of everything, and like. Even today, like a friend sent me a clip here in LA, one of our senators just arrested at some protest or town hall meeting downtown. And so there's footage of that going all around on X and everywhere else. And then right after that, once like one clip plays, another one starts up, it looks like this presidential address from Donald Trump, but it is just a completely deep faked thing. And indistinguishable from like what the actual news thing was. So that really scares a fogey like me. And I like, my sons are 16 and 13, and I'm like, how are they and their generation going to navigate all this stuff? And it's like, you can't trust your eyes, you can't trust your ears anymore. So it makes, I think, for great drama and Scoop, but for me personally, it like scares the hell out of me. So
that'll inform your fiction, and I think that's great. For people who are caught up, here's the back cover. There's my free commercial for Richard for Scoop. Sophie Cooper, ex-intern to news station WMIA 7, has faced a lot in the last year, from outwaiting time travelers to catching a knife-wielding killer to being blasted by an extraterrestrial energy, all in the pursuit of clearing her dad's name. Now she faces the most harrowing adventure for any teen. God, I should do it like the movie trailer. Now she faces the most harrowing adventure for any teen. A girl's trip with her mom. Wow. While relaxing in Cuba, it continues. The plan is to reconnect and retrace family history, but the paranormal never takes a vacation. Eerie visions of the past and a future plague Sophie, including glimpses of a faithful UFO crash from 1960 and a deadly premonition about her friend Milo. So I'll leave it at that. And it looks great, and it reads great. And honestly, man, no, this is fun, and it is geared towards teens. But that said, if you're just looking for some fun escapism, take it from the old man here. It's fun. And it's great. It really is. It's a very engaging story. Well done, dude.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. I'm very proud of the YA label, and Maverick is the best publisher I've ever worked with. That also applies to Mad Cave, the sort of parent company. But I think part of it was like like we talked before, I used to work at DreamWorks. And so, when we made things there, it was always meant to appeal to everyone. Like it couldn't just appeal to little kids. You wanted to get the parents, you want to get teens, 4-quadrant, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I still kind of think in those terms. And also just like for me as a kid growing up and reading comics in the 80s and 90s, like, the stuff on the spinner rack that I was getting as like a 3 and 4 and 5-year-old was the stuff that, teenagers and adults were getting. And it was like we were all reading the same issue of Superman. And yet there was something that each of us could like latch onto at those different points in our lives.
Totally.
So I always try and like, I'm not saying I write as well as like Marty Pasco. I definitely don't. But, the goal with like Scoop or any of these other books is to write something that it doesn't matter how old or young you are, you'll read it and you will enjoy it.
I love the Marty Pasco name drop, Richard. Forgive me, and if we have talked about this before, I didn't remember. Were you friends with Marty?
No, I unfortunately
in the animation world as well.
He never got the privilege. No, I wish I had, and obviously he's as much a legend there as he was in comics. And I've heard you talk about him, and I think I've heard a couple of your interviews with him too. And the thing that always shocks me is like I don't think he realized just how influential he was on generations, right? And like honestly, I still think like that's my version of Superman. I mean, it's kind of the one I grew up with, so that'll always be near and dear to my heart. But I think it's just like a really classic, pure, kind of timeless version.
Sure.
And even with like the new Superman, trailer, the James Gunn thing, I'm like, geez, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it, but I feel like shades of Pasco in there too.
Oh, I bet there's an influence there. I mean, it seems like Gunn always read a lot of those classic people and stuff. No, yeah. And you're right about Marty not realizing what kind of impact he had, because I saw it firsthand. I took him to Cincinnati and Salt Lake City for a couple conventions, and he had never been to those cities in a convention capacity, usually going to New York and San Diego. And he was just so stunned at how many younger readers were influenced, and also all the comic creators that were, your contemporaries and the like. They're just like, oh man, I grew up on your stuff. And he's like, I'm not Carrie Bates. I'm not Elliot Magan. And I'm like, no, you're goddamn Marty Pasco. I'm like, dude, you seriously, I don't know how to break it to you, but people know who you are, man.
Yeah, he was so slouch.
Yeah, he was wonderful that way, man. So, very good, Rudy. Good question here, man. Would you say Sophie is more Lois Lane or more Nancy Drew, or some combination of both? I love this question, Rudy.
That is a fantastic question. Thank you for that, Rudy. I'm going to say a combination of both. I mean, obviously, there's the teen detective angle of Nancy Drew. I'd actually say it's maybe more a combination of Veronica Mars and Lois Lane. Veronica Mars is still, aside from Kolchak the Night Stalker, my other favorite TV show. And when my wife and I, she's still my girlfriend at the time, we watched it when it premiered and we're hooked on it. And when that show went off the air the first time, after 3 seasons, we were heartbroken. And that's really when I started creating Scoop, because I was like, I need a sassy, spunky girl detective in my life. But there's for sure a lot of Lois Lane in there too. And not just because of the reporter angle, but one of my favorite writers, comics or otherwise, is Greg Rucka. He did an amazing run on Lois Lane, and when he's written Superman in the past, has done a great job with her character, and just kind of like his kind of spare style and really like immersing you in the kind of nitty gritty of like, well, the Daily Planet for there. I try and do the same thing at Sophie's news station in Miami, where there's like snippets of conversations going on everywhere and nobody like spoon feeds you the information, but there's enough context clues on the page to kind of figure out like, oh, this is how they're reporting this particular story or whatever. So like, yes, but both huge influences.
The newsroom that Sophie is in. And again, you said you interned over at CNN, right?
Mm-hmm,
now, was that a local bureau of CNN, or was it Atlanta?
It was the Miami bureau.
Right. Oh yeah, because you said the Versace.
Yeah. And so I at the time CNN was still headquartered in Atlanta because of the whole Turner origin.
Right. Sure.
But they had, and it was their office in Miami was like no great shakes. It was like in this very sort of nondescript office building. But they did have like a backdrop with like a photo of the Miami skyline, where if they'd have somebody come in and do a talking head, that would be there. I kind of actually wish I had that for let me see if I can get one of those for the next time I'm on here, John. Live from Miami. They had like all the other basic equipment, but it was really a trip. It was like kind of like a surprisingly small team. You think like CNN would be this, good evening, Carrie or Kari.
Carrie,
Sorry.
yeah.
Carrie, yeah.
Yeah, I meant to distract everybody, and you'll forgive me, but yeah, you always want to like acknowledge the.
No, it's okay. I was just rambling anyway.
No.
I was just saying it was like a surprisingly small and scrappy team, which was great for me because it just meant it was much easier to learn from all of them. And kind of the funny thing was like, I mean, it's definitely an education seeing how like a story is made in front of the camera, but all the stuff behind the scenes, like the politics and the tensions and the push and pull of like journalistic ethics and integrity versus like, ooh, this might be a sexier lead in or headline, and like all that, like that was the real education for me. And those are probably my favorite scenes to write in Scoop, which are Sophie and especially her mentor, Hal Ritz, who's kind of like this washed up braggart of a newsman who claims to have broken every major news story in the past 20 years, even though it's impossible. And it was based on Bob Vito, who was the senior correspondent when I was at CNN, and he's a really great guy and took me under his wing and even disclosed to me that his real name was, I think it's Roberto Viverito, but he shortened it for, to be snappier on the news.
Yeah, TV, absolutely, man.
And so that's Hal Ritz. His name is Harold Ritzenhauser, but he went for the punchier Hal Ritz. So
in Bloomington, Illinois, they wouldn't let me be John Suntress. I had to be John Sanders. I shit you not.
John Sanders.
John Sanders.
Wow.
Can we Anglo that up a little bit more? Yeah, sure, man. Listen, when you're done, I'm not even going to go there.
That was like what the aughts, the 90s.
God, my man, it was it was actually late 80s. Old man, but it was like it was while I was in college, like 88, 89. No shit.
John Sanders.
That 80s, 87, 88, actually. Yeah. Crazy.
John Sanders, PI.
So yeah. Oh, that's right, Carrie. That's right, Carrie Sanders, my secret cousin. Absolutely. That's very cute. Very nice. Very nice. But anyway, but that's why I totally relate to this newsroom, because that's the kind of operations I've even here in Chicago at CBS Radio, a lot of crap was held together by Scotch tape. I shit you.
Totally.
So, that's just the nature, especially even more so in radio, but I've seen it in TV as well.
It's kind of scary how rinky-dink it is, because you just assume these guys are like authority figures because they sound so serious talking to the camera and perfect diction and all that, but they're just a bunch of goofballs like everyone else.
That's great, man. No, that's why. And really, all right, so there are 3 volumes of Scoop.
3 volumes, and each one is like a standalone mystery. It's very much like Veronica Mars. So like in each season of Veronica Mars, there was kind of like a larger mystery. In season 1 was Who Killed Lily Kane, right? And so every episode would kind of touch on it, but that was the big mystery that would unify the season. So we did the same kind of thing with each volume of Scoop. Each one has its own like standalone mystery or two. There's usually one true crime kind of thing that's pulled from the headlines, and then like a sci-fi mystery, and they often intersect in a weird way. And then overarching across all of that is this larger mystery about Sophie's dad, who's been accused of this like really heinous financial crime, like Bernie Madoff level embezzlement. And all of Miami thinks her dad is guilty as sin. There hasn't been a trial, but like everyone's like, this guy did it. And they have the media circus camped out on the front lawn 24/7. And the only person in Miami who believes this guy's innocent is Sophie. And she's like, well, she's 15 at the time. So in her teenage brain, she's like, if the news is painted my dad out to be the bad guy, I'm going to use the news to clear his name. And that's why she starts interning at this TV station in Miami, only they're total amateur hour. They get everything wrong. And like as an intern, she doesn't get to do much. She like fetches coffee and menial like all the stuff I had to do as an intern.
Yep.
Go for work. But she starts to investigate these cases that none of the other reporters want to touch. They all seem like crank calls about ghosts in the Everglades and UFOs and chupacabras. And it turns out it's all true. And it's all connected to the case against her dad. So now she has to go out there and sort of overcome her camera fright and prove to the world that all this weird sci-fi stuff is real. And if she does that, she clears her dad's name and boom, she can be a normal teenager again. So,
there you go, man. So
yeah.
A little bit of Buffy along with your Veronica Mars. There you
go. Totally. Definitely
cool.
Another touch point. And I'm really like, I won't speak to the story, but I will tell you the art in these things is beautiful. Maverick packages, great books. I think they're really reasonably priced. You get a good bang for the buck. And if any of your listeners happen to be on the fence about it, I always offer a money back guarantee on my books. I've done this all along. And so if somebody reads it and doesn't like it, I will buy it back from you. You can find me on social media. You can go through John. He knows where I live. You can he'll shake me down for the money.
know where you live.
Yeah. I haven't had to buy back anything yet. And I hope that stands. But I really recommend people check it out at any age. It's a really fun series. It's heartwarming. It's set in my hometown of Miami. And I'm half Cuban, even though I don't look or sound or my name's not anything like that. I might as well be called John Sanders. But I put a lot of that heritage in Sophie's also half Cuban. And so like, her family and her friends. And, I think it's pretty entertaining.
That's cool, man. Hey, Radio Dormouse says, I feel elements of The Shadow in there as well, along with Buffy and Veronica Mars.
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely sort of the I love a good pulpy story, and I feel like Shadow he had like sort of his network of agents, right? And they would all sort of owe him favors and be informants, and that's
Sure.
kind of the other fun thing about Scoop is like over the course of 3, almost 4 volumes, we've developed a bit of an ensemble in this network, and I don't want to give away anything for part 4, but like that group, which a lot of them haven't even necessarily interacted with each other in person, there's a reason where they all need to kind of come together and save Sophie. And it was really gratifying to see Pablo start to illustrate our whole cast and be like, oh my God, these are a lot of guys. And kind of just cool seeing them all in the lineup together. So if you've been following along since the beginning, hopefully that'll be a fun payoff for you.
There you go. And again, everybody, there's only 3 volumes, so it's easy to catch up.
Yeah.
Maria has a comment and says it's great to see a female lead in Scoop. As a man, how do you find a female voice? Or is that an observation?
I think I'm reading it as a question.
That's what I thought. All right. Yeah. So as a man, how do you write women?
Yeah.
So well?
Well, thank you. First of all, it's not I don't know. Any answer I give to this is going to sound super pretentious, but I will just say that I don't really start from a place of gender. I just start from a place of like, who is kind of the smartest, most capable, resourceful character I can come up with, like who can do all the stuff that I never would be brave enough to do. And that's where I begin. And I guess in the case of Scoop, maybe because I was like so enamored of Veronica Mars, maybe that kind of led her to more being a girl, but also like my mom, who's also happened to be named Maria, is a very capable, a can-do person, and emigrated to the US from Cuba when she was 7 years old.
Wow.
She came with my grandparents and my uncle, who was only 2, and I'm sorry, he was only 5 then. But anyway, they were kids. And my mom was kind of the one who spoke English and had to be sort of the mouthpiece for the family. And like, it's no surprise, wound up becoming an attorney. And so
wow.
Sophie's mom, Dulce, is based a lot on my mom, even though Dulce is the name of an aunt that my mom couldn't stand. But that's neither here nor there. That was a mistake on my part. But, and even though like Dulce, the mom is based on my mom, I think a lot of Sophie's personality is based on my mom and is based on the other strong woman in my life, and that's my wife, Jen. So she's kind of like a composite of them.
Carrie has a writer's question.
Yes.
And asks, I hope this wasn't already asked, but how hard is it to write for a younger audience? Do you ever have to worry about the parental banning folks, or are you pretty safe from that?
Well, I guess to answer the last question first, I think we all have to worry about the parental banning folks at this point and stuff that might seem innocuous. I think there's a little bit of a mix. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to ask, would you say your stuff is in general, and actually, because we're going to get to Detective shortly, yeah. another book, but would you say your stuff is PG-13? I mean, is it? I mean, where would you? Because unfortunately, there are these needs for people, and I understand that someone looking for a Y7 story may not want a PG-13 story.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of Maverick is like they kind of describe, kind of like what the sort of like a content warning for each book somewhere on the back cover usually.
Okay.
On the back, there's usually it'll say like stuff, but Yeah, my stories are always PG-13. I mean, I have a comic that isn't yet.
Good.
Yeah, and
I mean, because I mean, obviously, forgive me, but as an older man, I want something a little more challenging than necessarily a Y7 story. Now, that said, Justice League cartoons were Y7 and they were fantastic. But back to your stuff, man. It's cool.
Well, no, but I think that's kind of like, if I go back to the sort of the original part of that question,
Yes.
like, is it hard to write in YA? I think what's hard about it is what ultimately makes it so great and kind of universal for all audiences. Because like, I think in YA stories, you still want to have peril, you still want to have danger, you still want to deal with adult themes, because the idea is like, this is like a young adult kind of figuring out their place in the world and contemplating heavier issues, but doing it through like the safer move of comic book fiction, right?
Sure.
And so what I like about YA is you still have to touch on all those themes, but you don't want to be super explicit with it, because not even like getting banned by someone, but like, you know, you don't want to turn off a potential librarian or a mom who might buy the book for their kid or something like that. Like, you don't want to scare them away right from the outset with like what might seem as gratuitous violence or language or whatever. And I personally just like stories where there's a lot more subtext. So you can deal with all this heavy duty stuff, but maybe not be so on the nose about it and be a little more coded about it. And like, I'm very proud to say with both Scoop and Tective, there's a lot of diversity in our casts and our characters. I mean, Miami in particular, like I grew up there as this cultural melting pot. We've got kind of every stripe reflected in there. And in Tective, which is this whacked out far future version of LA, everyone is pretty much intermingled to the point where like, you know, they're sort of diverse, but sort of not, because everyone's like
everyone is intermarried, therefore they're, you know. By the way, they weren't about that in Revelations. I just want to point that out.
Okay.
You know, I don't want, you know.
Talk about a controversial book.
Yeah, I'm just saying, how dare you? My 13-year-old will never read any of your stuff. Oh, I'm teasing you, man. It's all good. No, honestly, we can shift Tective, because this is another fun story. This is really neat. There are elements of Blade Runner in here. You've got a post-apocalyptic LA, as glad I got that out selectively. But yeah, you know, as Richard pointed out. But no, it's really interesting. And also, it is a post-apocalyptic world, if I may, where technology has been shunned because of the fallout that caused the post-apocalyptic world, I'm assuming. So there's even a little bit of, in a very different way, but my brain, because I'm old, immediately went to one of my favorite animated movies of the 70s, Ralph Bakshi's Wizards. But this isn't fantasy. This is more Road Warrior even than I would say a Blade Runner, because Blade Runner still was very technological, whereas Road Warrior really is like, especially Thunderdome, the third Mad Max.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, John, I've given this a lot of thought, and like,
sure, your world building, please.
Blade Runner, I would say, is like neo-noir. I wouldn't say it's post-apocalyptic, because like, you know, it looks gritty, but it's still kind of LA. And with Tective, we say it's post-apocalyptic. So it's so far after the apocalypse that LA has been reborn as kind of this like very bucolic farming community full of villages, which is kind of like what it was at the beginning, you know, or at least a couple hundred years ago. And it's, I would say it's like a combination between that post-apocalyptic thing and like a straight up noir story, because our main character, Bingo, when we first meet her, she's a scavenger and searching through the ruins of our civilization to find stuff to trade at her village. But her favorite thing to find, and the thing that nobody else cares about, are books. And she'll find occasionally like an old, you know, hermetically sealed panic room or like bomb shelter or whatever. And her favorite kind of books are like pulpy detective novels from the 30s and 40s, and, you know, all the stuff that we like.
Sure.
And she's the only person in LA who knows how to read, and her literacy kind of becomes a superpower. And because it's so far after the apocalypse, everyone thinks that this world is like a utopia now. It's post-racism, post-crime, post-misogyny, post-everything. But then one day, Bingo's best friend goes missing. And because there hasn't been crime in a long time, there's no police. And so there's like nobody to like figure out what happened to Bingo's friend. And she wants to know what happened to her friend. So she thinks back to her favorite books, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to be like one of those guys that put on those hats and the trench coats and walked around LA and looked for people and helped people. I'm going to become a detective. And that kind of starts her on her journey. And the difference, though, is like for her, all her shoe leather is taking place in this like really whacked out world of talking giant animals and mutants and robot cults and all these other things. And again, in true noir fashion, the deeper she digs into her society, the more she realizes maybe it isn't so post-crime, maybe it isn't so perfect, and she starts to see the seedy underbelly of things. So that's Detective in a nutshell.
Did you tell me that it's kind of like Chinatown for YA, basically?
Maybe Kurt Matilla, our friend, told you that, because I just that's a great pitch. Chinatown for kids.
In terms of the secret society and everything, although
there,
a little different.
There is. I mean, like, I love that movie, and that also obviously set in LA and a classic noir story. So it was really tough because it took me a while to work on Detective. I was working on it for years, and I was trying not to watch or read too much noir, like all my favorite things, because I didn't want to be unduly influenced by feel, right? It's subconsciously. But even still, like now, once volume 1 came out, I like binged all my favorite noir stuff and finally got to watch LA Confidential again. And for the first time in years, one of my favorite movies.
Sure.
And even then I'm like, oh man, I totally ripped off Elroy there, but it's all done with love. And I think it's maybe not my place to say, but one of the things I think is cool about Detective is we're less interested in like aping famous detective stories and more interested in taking like the tropes of noir and reinterpreting them through this post-apocalyptic lens. And so, we'll have like our version of Foot Chase, but it's, rickshaws being pulled by these weird mutants and so on and so forth.
No, that's fun, man. Your son is using your YouTube account to ask a couple questions.
Oh, God.
In Detective, why did you choose the name With Me for one of the Coyote leader's subordinates?
Yes.
And he just wanted you to know, it's his son on his account. He needs to know.
I need to know. Well, you could ask me anytime, Ben, but thank you for doing so in Word Balloon. So With Me, so Bingo's our main character, and kind of like the Hawk to her Spencer is a guy named King Coyote, who is this giant talking coyote, and he's the leader of his pack. And his subordinate, who maybe has more of a romantic role in volume 2, which we're working on, her name is With Me. And she looks like a big white wolf, and she's based on we have a white husky with blue eyes named Lulu. But I'm always telling her when we're walking her, Lulu will go nuts when she sees another dog and start like snarling and jumping around. So I'm like, with me, come on, with me. And so that's where the name of With Me came from.
That's awesome.
Thank you for the question.
But it has that great Blade Runner classic pulp thing of the inner monologue. As Bingo's going around, which I love. I mean, that's the thing, man. It's this is really a fun crime thing. You should send one to Rucka, really, because really another thing, Richard Truly, you should let the guys know at Hardcase and show them this, because honestly, it just shows that you understand the tropes, even though and maybe that is an area that Hardcase hasn't considered, is maybe doing a YA thing for their kind of.
I have reached out to Hardcase, and you're right, I need to do it again. I mean, they also do their own comics through, I think, Titan, and they're
No, I get them all the time, and they're great, and I keep meaning to have creators on. Gun Army is a great. And listen, everybody, if you're not aware, you should be if you love a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on Word Balloon, because they're great crime comics, and they're R-rated, but that's okay. I mean, they're meant for adults. But it would be great to see them maybe do some YA stuff too.
Absolutely. I mean, I probably, out of any publisher, like on my bookshelf, there's probably more the yellow Hardcase logo than maybe Valancourt books. But and they, aside from like all that, they also reprint all these great Lost Donald E. Westlake books, and which are pretty fantastic too. But
that chick in Collins, Max Collins too.
That's right. Yep.
But
no, just what you were saying about kind of the noir narration and detective. That's my favorite part to write. That feels like jazz to me, and we have fun with it because when Bingo starts out as a detective, and I should say the reason it's called Detective is like her favorite detective book. The cover is worn on it, and so parts of the word are missing. So all she can read is detective, and so everyone's detective. That's what that's about. That's a cute little thing. But she's like, oh, well, if I'm a detective, I need to start narrating one. But she kind of screws it up the first few times. And takes a few attempts, but then she gets it. And I don't know, man. It's probably the easiest thing to slip back into when I'm writing. We did, if I can do a quick plug, Mad Cave did this great book for the wildfires we had out here in LA called LA Strong.
Here, I'll zoom it in on that.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
There you go.
This great cover by Ian Churchill, and a real murderer's row of talent contributed to it. Your pal, Brian Michael Bendis, Mark Guggenheim, Brian Azzarello. It goes on and on and on. And I'm in there too. But we have a little 3-page detective story in there, and that was illustrated by Marco Matrone and lettered by Dave Sharp. They work on Detective Series 2. There's Marco, my brother from an Italian mother.
Attaboy.
And it's just a 3-page story. It's really fun. We just wanted to contribute because I live in LA. We weren't directly affected by the fires, thank God, but so many comic book people in particular were. Steven Siegel, Mark Verheiden, who's another one of my favorite all-time writers, was unfortunately impacted by it. So all proceeds from LA Strong go to support the comics community that was impacted by fires. It's still not too late to pick up the book. I think in a lot of places you can just sort of donate what you want to for it. Anyway, that was my spiel on that. But we wrote that story well after Volume 1 was completed. And I thought I was going to have to kind of like shake off the cobwebs to start writing detective again, because I was sort of in scoop mode. But man, just starting with that narration just slipped right in. So for what it's worth.
That's great, man. And again, I do like those awkward initial moments, because you can imagine this 15-year-old trying to find her inner Raymond Chandler, and it's just not there, not yet.
It's not like a normal way of talking, and like I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but like James Ellroy has this like infamously rat-a-tat sort of elliptical style, and I think he and his agent stumbled upon it where like they were running into word count problems on a book. It might have even been LA Confidential. And they were like, well, what happens if you just like pull out like basically every other word? And they started to do that. And then all of a sudden wound up with this like incredible, ineffable style that, I and every other crime-loving person that's come since totally rips off.
I get it. Absolutely, man. That's hilarious. It is interesting. Do you watch, do you have Turner Classic Movies?
We cut the cord.
I respect that.
A while ago, but my parents still have DirecTV, and we're going to visit them this weekend. And I watch TCM on there. So, because they always have some nice noir on there.
Well, I was going to say, and actually, I think in the last day or two, they ran a bunch that I, didn't watch live, but having access to it and stuff, I'm going to have to catch The Narrow Margin and some of my favorite movies.
Nice.
But Eddie Muller, I'm such a fan of, who hosts Noir Alley on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings. And he always comes through, as I'm sure he does. I know he does for LA, his wonderful Film Noir Film Festival.
Yeah.
That he hosts and everything. And he comes to Chicago with it too. And no, I just honestly, that guy has found that same kind of wonderful cadence in his storytelling that the films that he honors and stuff do. And it's great.
Yeah, he's living and breathing it.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, man, Jack Webb next week and everything. We're going to do Unseen Missing, our word balloon show that Gabe Harbin and I do with Ian Brill. And we're going to be doing Jack Webb movies. And again, Pat Novak for hire. I'm telling you, man.
I'm going to give it a watch.
There might be some tech-tiv influences you might want to put in there and stuff. Some of the metaphors that Webb would do specifically on Pat Novak. Very funny stuff.
Yeah, I'll have a character that talks in one really long run-on sentence with no punctuation, like the word balloon fills the page.
He could be
an homage to Jack.
He could be one of those people from that post-apocalyptic civilization.
Yeah.
Because I also, without spoiling, there's some great scenes where they're aware, because it's 100 years later, of what our modern day technology and world was like to a degree, but because the storytelling is likely come spoken word from generation, and that there's a couple pieces missing. But again,
I get some stuff wrong. Yeah, it's like a really, really bad game of telephone, where the facts get jumbled along the way. But we have a lot of fun with that. We do a lot of wordplay with like missing letters and signs.
Yeah.
So like if you're a word nerd like me, I think there's kind of those little Easter eggs in there too.
That's cool. Well, another thing I wanted to ask you about was this weekend, of course, the fans of How to Train Your Dragon are very excited about what's coming with the live action version debuting this weekend.
Yeah.
And of course, you've certainly had involvement in your years at DreamWorks with the Dragon franchise, including being one of the writers. This is a card for season 4, but I know you were on an earlier season. But of course, Dragons Race to the Edge, which is a Netflix show. So yeah, are you gonna go see the live action, or is it like an old girlfriend where it's like, yeah, I don't know?
No. No, I will look. Dragons has been so great to me, so of course I will see it. But I'll especially see it for Dean DeBlois, who's writing and directing the live action one, and wrote and directed the animated movies, and was my boss and mentor for years.
Cool.
And a lot of the world building in Tech Dev is all just based on lessons I learned working for him and having all the world building coming from character and grounding it all on emotion. But that's Tech Dev. No, I can't wait to see it. I have not yet seen it. Everything I've heard about it is like insanely positive. And I will tell you, just between us, I'm not always a fan of like taking an animated movie and doing the live action version, which is usually mostly CGI anyway. It's just like another form of animation. But I do believe in Dean, and by all accounts, he's really nailed it and done a great job. So I'm going to see it. I encourage everyone else to see it. It should be really good.
I know that, like you said, the early word is that it is very good. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Carrie says, I have a friend who customized his motorcycle to look like Toothless. It's very rad.
That sounds rad.
That's great. That's excellent.
It's not shooting plasma bolts into traffic, but wow.
I don't want them to disrupt the How to Train universe, but I am hoping that there's sort of an element of was it Rain of Fire? What was the early 2000s? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, with McConaughey and Christine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
With time travel, and it was with Billy Connolly. I went back to the past.
Yeah, boy, that would be kind of a curveball if Dean threw that in there. But
what are you doing here?
I was just kind of like reading some interview Dean had done recently, and they were just asking like about the effects, and it's like when we were working on the Dragon movies and on the shows, like Game of Thrones was just starting on HBO, and like their dragon effects were getting pretty awesome. And I'll say, like, I still think in the animated movies, the dragons really, really hold up, especially like in part 2, like Roger Deakins was a visual consultant on it, and, cinematographer on Blade Runner, the sequel, and a million others, the Oscar winner, I think he did Spectre. I mean, he's like the best. Those things look incredible, but it's going to be really neat to see them. I've been trying not to look at too many of the trailers. I don't want to get spoiled. I also kind of know the story, so it doesn't matter anyway. But the dragons are supposed to look awesome. And kind of the interesting thing is, like in animation, you can get really stylized, right? Like Toothless was designed by Chris Sanders. It's kind of that who, also designed Stitch and voices him too. So that's why Toothless looks very different from all the other dragons, who are predominantly designed by a guy named Nico Marley. He's incredibly talented. But like in animation, you can get really kind of like heightened and stylized and really lean into those artists' quirks. I'm really curious to see how they are going to accomplish that in a more live action setting where, like, is that still going to work? Do you have to make them look more fantasy? Do you have to make them look more like Reign of Fire or Game of Thrones? So, yeah.
I was wondering, based on what you just said, is the line blurring as far as CGI goes, where guys are doing both animation and attempting to look as realistic as possible?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I mean, are you saying, like, are the effects getting so
well, that they're also the same technicians do, that kind of thing. But yeah, in both cases, the format.
Yeah, my neighbor here in Glendale has worked at DreamWorks and a bunch of other places, and in fact, he just worked on the animated Predator movie that's on Hulu, which I haven't seen now, but it's supposed to be unreal.
I'm hearing nothing but great things. Yeah. I'm gonna do one of my science fiction what's on right now review kind of shows, so I'm hoping to watch it before tomorrow night when I do that show. So yeah, but yeah, I hear great things. Yeah,
I mean, it's got a Predator and ninjas, so like, what more could anything possibly need? So that's what I'm doing on Father's Day for Sunday.
There you go, man. Absolutely, I get it. Absolutely.
But he, our neighbor, also like works on Marvel stuff. Like I think he did some work on Falcon and Winter Soldier and stuff. So I think it's a lot of similar skill sets. It's a lot of the same kind of software. And yeah, we are kind of in this crazy place now where like, depending on the type of animation, like the like Dragons with the How to Train Dragon, the animated movies, with the exception of the human characters, everything there was pretty photorealistic. That was very much by design. And so I think when you're working in that kind of style, it's very easy to transition into live action and back and forth. If you're doing something more like Shrek or Minions or something, it's probably, I mean, it's a different skill set, but I still feel like you could probably go back and forth between the two. Like animation's hard. And like, if you can do animation, you can do live action. And that, I feel that way about like comics and every other writing. Like, I just feel like comics is the ultimate boot camp for writing because you have to be economical with language. You want to think and write visually, you want to like prioritize emotion. These are all the things you'd want to be doing in a screenplay or a novel or any, and I feel like comics are the ultimate proving ground. If you can do it there, I feel like you can write pretty much anything.
That kind of explains why Kirkman and Bendis and others have succeeded as they've jumped to television and film. So I get it. That's great, man. That's really cool. And I think it's an interesting time right now. A couple comments. Let's see. Maria says, Scoop and Detective seem like they would make great movies or animated works. She took the words out of my mouth, Richard. Honestly, they absolutely feel like they could be. And as you've said, Scoop is certainly episodic. So, you could see a series or a series of films.
What can I say? I agree. I totally agree. And I don't know what the hell Hollywood's problem is.
Are you pushing them?
I'm not pushing them so much right now just because not much is happening right now. I think productions are starting to pick up and people are starting to buy new things. But like up until last year, I was still out there pitching pretty aggressively on Detective and on another book I'm doing through Paper Cuts, which is also part of Mad Cave. It hasn't been announced yet, but I'd have a pitch and be like, yeah, sounds awesome. Great. We're just not buying anything right now. And like, okay, I don't know why we had this pitch, why you're wasting my time, why I'm wasting yours, but whatever. It's just the way it is. So with Scoop, we have had interest over the years. I guess I just haven't found the right partner. And I don't think I hope I'm not turning my nose up at anything, but I guess my take on it is this. Like, Scoop is one of my babies, along with my actual flesh and blood children. And weirdly, I've been working on Scoop since 2008. So that's like, what, 17 years? Yeah, it's actually the same age as my oldest son. So like, and I'm not saying it's been in publication all that time, but I've been like writing it and developing it and pitching it and getting real close, and then it falls apart. And we started doing it with another publisher a couple of years ago, and that didn't quite work. And then thank God Maverick came in there and is now, Scoop is, I feel like, finally found its audience. All that to say, I've put a lot of like time and energy and emotion and like a lot of investment into this. It's like financial investment. And it always kind of bugs me when like a production company or a development exec is like, we love it. Can you just write all this stuff on spec for us? And can you just change this, this, and this, this? And I'm like, I could, but I don't know that makes it any better. I'm willing to give it a shot, but I'm not going to work free of charge. And you guys in Hollywood have a lot more money than I do in comics. And, I'm looking for someone to be as invested in Scoop as I've been all this time. And the second I find, or Detective, same thing goes. The second I find someone like that who is kind of willing to put their money where their mouth is, then we'll talk.
Are there, because I've seen this obviously from a movie studio standpoint, you've got the classic traditional studios,
Mhm.
are there boutique animation studios in the same sense that like Blumhouse and A24 have developed in the traditional, live action film industry have?
There are the challenges with those are like ultimately those things are probably going to feed into like at this point pretty much like a Netflix or a streamer, right?
Okay.
There aren't too many other outlets. There are not as many outlets now as there were 10 years ago,
Sure.
5 years ago,
Sure. Yeah.
And a lot of these, there are incredible animation studios all over the world. Actually, like Ireland has some of the best, but so many of them do their like basically keep the lights on by producing shows for Netflix or Amazon or whoever it is.
Yeah.
So they have to devote to that. So even if they had the bandwidth to take on another project, it can't be their top or their only priority. And you're looking at like a really long lead time. And animation is just a very long process, especially on the feature side, just to begin with.
Yeah.
I actually think, I don't know if it was on your show. I heard some interview with Dan DiDio not that long ago, and like he started in animation. He did Reboot, and I think it was Mainframe was the studio.
Yep.
And he said the same kind of thing. Even, I mean, that would have been back in the 90s, but like they had all these plans to do all these other things, but it was like all kind of the shows. They were doing work for other studios, things that they weren't projects that they owned, like Reboot, but they had to do them to kind of keep the lights on, to pay on.
Sure.
And so it's like, you want to find that place where you have like the people have the talent and the kind of have the same vision for your story that you do, but are actually able to execute on it. And it's also really tough when, you have like, we're still like in this phase of a lot of these studios and production companies are like merging or acquiring each other. And so there's like less people buying things, less people making things. So for me, I feel like now probably isn't the best time. Everything's still like really unsettled, but it's not always going to be the case. And maybe down the road, there will be a Scoop Protective show. And if not, I'm okay with that. Like these things were always meant to be comics first. And like, I feel like we're getting to do 4 volumes of Scoop, which I feel like a victory right there. Like
sure.
It's hard for it. There's so much competition. There's so much good stuff out there these days. So, it's nice to have been able to tell a story in this format for as long as we have been.
I understand, and I'm glad Maverick believes in you and these properties, and that they're giving you this opportunity. And like you said, all you're doing is building the library. That if something were to happen and stuff, well, guess what? I've got 4 at least volumes, if not more, of Scoop.
Yeah,
Detective will eventually have 2. So, and I'm sure we'll continue as well. So, I was listening to John Campia's YouTube show today. And my buddy Robert Meyer Burnett was making a point about, and I forget which property it was, but essentially, it was Harry Potter. And they were just asking the question of, well, if they make a Harry Potter series, could it go a TV, streaming series? Could it, and of course, probably HBO, could it last more than, a season or 2? And he's like, well, yeah, there's, however many books there are. He said, so that every one of those books could be a season, really, the way that.
Well, Warner Brothers has already gone on record saying they want to do at least 10 seasons, which I don't know how they're able to do with 7 books, but I guess they're somehow able to make 8 movies out of 7 books.
Richard, come on, man. Let's not forget. And honestly, to this day, I was so angry when they chopped The Hobbit up and man. And listen, Peter Jackson, I love you for Lord of the Rings. The trilogy was amazing. They were 3 separate books. I mean, I remember as a kid watching the Rankin Bass Hobbit Sunday, and it was on a 2-hour block, and they told the damn story, and it was fine. And it's like, come on, man. You're milking it, man. So, no, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Not everything needs to be a trilogy.
So, here. Radio Dormos wants to know, will there be a Scoop and Scoob crossover, meaning Scooby-Doo, of course.
Boy,
Scoob?
I love that.
Zoinks.
I wonder if maybe the detective one would make more sense because we got the talking coyotes and they got quite.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
No, Scooby-Doo is still a huge So like, my kids grew up watching Scooby-Doo. I did. You did. My parents. I remember one time my parents were visiting us, and they were like, we watched Scooby-Doo as kids. So I'm like, this incredible evergreen,
Tubi. You could watch everybody. You can watch Scooby-Doo on Tubi for free, on the free advertising supported television, or as we used to call it, television
TV.
Which I love that. Yeah, that's the cool thing now. But anyway, Scooby-Doo is on there, and it had a copyright of like 77, and I'm like, I think Scooby-Doo was on when I was a really little kid. And sure enough, copyright 1969. I'm like, all right, there you go. I was 4 years old. I'm like, and I'm sure I was watching it at 4 years old. So no, you're absolutely right. Come on.
That, and when I was a kid on USA, they had this thing called Cartoon Express, and it was just like on Saturdays, 4-hour blocks of like old Hanna-Barbera and like weird stuff like Hair Bear Bunch and
yes,
but I loved all those things, and I really loved all the Hanna-Barbera superheroes. Like all the stuff Dynamite is doing now. Herculoids and Samson and all that.
Right.
But Scooby-Doo, like I wouldn't kill to write. I wouldn't kill to do anything, but yeah, I would love to write Scooby-Doo. And I actually got to meet some people who've worked on Scooby-Doo, like Doug Langdale's a pretty well-respected animation writer, and he wrote some Scooby-Doo, like kind of like made for DVD movies.
Sure.
He was like, with Scooby-Doo, he's like, there's a formula, but you have to stick to it, because if you don't, it's just not Scooby-Doo anymore. And he's absolutely right. And so you got to do the mask reveal. You got to do people running between the doors and being chased by the ghost. And now Shaggy's chasing the ghost, and like all. And but that's like the joy of it,
Of course,
and especially those original episodes from the '60s. The design and look of those is so cool. I mean, we even did like Scooby-Doo birthday parties for our kids, where I dressed up like Fred. I had a little orange ascot. And we had activities for the kids of like wrapping each other with toilet paper to look like the mummy. Yeah, Scooby-Doo is awesome. Hey, from your lips to Warner Brothers ears, I would like that crossover very much.
I'm glad that you mentioned that it was Warner Brothers, because I meant to mention it earlier. Nothing is safe. I mean, my God, that Looney Tunes movie that came out a couple months ago had to come out through a different distributor because Warner Brothers didn't have the guts to put it out. And it seems, I don't know what the plan is, I don't know what you hear, but it might be eventually that Warner Brothers sells off its animation stuff, which is shocking, because I would think from a licensing standpoint, that stuff is still ridiculously valuable. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm just from the consumer products. I don't think they would do that, and I know people are even worried about DC Comics. So my wife works at Adult Swim, which is Discovery. So hopefully I'm not revealing any. I don't think so. I think it's all public knowledge. Like Warner Brothers announced they're splitting. All their like TV networks are going to be one company, and the movie streaming is going to be something else. Which is
it sounds like the Discovery, all that reality stuff that they merged a couple of years ago will now be its own thing, and then all the fictional stuff will be its own thing.
Precisely. But like just like what you said, like stuff like Scooby-Doo, like the DC library, I mean, that stuff is evergreen. And even if they're not making a show, like you can buy Scooby-Doo party favors for your kids or for yourself right now if you want.
Yeah.
And you can always buy shirts and like go to any Hot Topic, there'll be some Scooby thing or some DC things. So like I just can't imagine them ever wanting to part with that stuff. But who knows? And again, we're in this crazy world of like mergers and acquisitions, and like one of the big things they said is like, we feel splitting all this up into two companies will position them both for success, but also make them really appealing to like be purchased or to buy something else. So like,
maybe somebody else is going to buy Warner Brothers. Absolutely. Yeah, man. No, it's interesting. And I know, and I agree with you. I think obviously DC is going to be safe given the slate of movies and everything else coming up, and even the newer animation. But yeah, I'm thinking about the Looney Tunes stuff, which again, you would think would be a no-brainer, but it's like, what? And or even the decision initially to shelve the John Cena Acme movie as well.
Yeah. So I know some of the folks that work over there on the feature animation side, and I think a lot of these decisions are made before they started there. I think unfortunately it just came down to a dollars and cents thing, and they even shelved a Scoop movie. It was going to be a sequel to the Scoob movie that came out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far along that was in production, but like I've worked on things in animation where they kill it before it's done. Like at DreamWorks, I was sort of involved with this one project called Boo, which was awesome. It was sort of like Men in Black, but with ghosts. And it was an animated movie. And Seth Rogen was doing one of the voices, and Melissa McCarthy was doing one of the voices, and Bill Murray was the voice of the bad guy, and he was a ghost. So Ghostbuster was playing Ghost. It was hilarious. And they killed it before it was done. And it's heartbreaking because everyone works so hard on these things, whether they come out great or terrible or anywhere in between. Everyone's putting their heart and soul into it, working crazy hours, giving up weekends, everything. So it's horrible when that happens. And I think that's what happened with the Batgirl movie that DC had. I'm no offense to like accountants, but basically some bean counters just said like Warner Brothers will actually make more money if this movie never sees the light of day than if we release it. And when Discovery merged with Warner Brothers, there was all this debt that they inherited and some of it was created, and they just wanted to pay down the debt. And so I think they made something that I guess made sense on a ledger, but just doesn't make sense in terms of like common sense or human lives or like art or anything. So, that's one of those things that I think will go down, in the books as like a huge, huge mistake. But it happened. And we also fortunately live in this world where there are these other companies out there that are taking these Looney Tunes movies, and now they do stand the chance of seeing the light of day too. So
yeah. No, I hear you, man. And again, I haven't had the opportunity yet, shame on me, to see that last Looney Tunes movie, but I hear nothing but great things.
It's great. Yeah.
Oh, there you go, man. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's such a different world than it was even we all understand. Well, we don't actually understand as fans the impact of COVID and the 2 strikes that happened as well. And also there was the animation conflict as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, these things are really, really hard. And that's why I appreciate your point of view. As I told you, even off the air, it's like, hey man, your years at DreamWorks kind of, at least you're in tune to the business. Although again, with the changes that are now happening, you have friends still that are doing stuff actively there. But again, I can only speak to broadcasting.
But it's such a small number of people who are still working, because even before I guess the pandemic came first, but even before the strikes, it's around 22 or 23, Netflix kind of had this big correction and lost half their valuation in a day. It was crazy. And
I remember that. Yeah.
Wall Street was all we've been caring about lately is subscriber numbers, but are you actually making any money? Because that's probably important. And everyone's like, oh yeah, right, we should make money as a business. So Netflix had, up until for the past couple of years before that, had built up a huge animation business and was doing features and animated series and became a huge kind of arms dealer for animation. And then Amazon was following suit, and HBO Max, back when it was called HBO Max the first time, and all these other places were doing this. And then once Netflix was like, we're going to turn all that off, everyone else did too. And it really devastated the animation industry. And up until then, during the pandemic, animation was one of the few things that could still be made because most of it could be done remotely, right? So that, I feel like my career still hasn't fully recovered from that. And then, everything else. And there's no way to even know the full impact. We're not going to know for another 10, 15 years.
For real.
Very grisly books written about all this stuff.
Yeah, man. No, we are, sadly, we're still going through the rinse cycle. It's, we're still dirty, unfortunately. We're no.
Maybe soil level,
broadcasting, is in the same boat. I speak from experience, and again, it's we don't know what's going to happen at the other end. All my friends that are big nerds and media watchers, it's even over-the-air network television. I don't know what it's going to look like in 5 years. I really don't, because all they keep doing is crying poverty, and understandably so. Again, they've got the ledgers. They know how much money they've wasted. And they're trying to recoup these losses. And so, they got to be really selective of what they decide to do. That's why we're getting more reality shows and game shows and non-scripted things on the big networks, let alone the streamers, which are also acting in kind. So yeah, I don't know what it's interesting, and I don't we don't know.
It's funny because I mean I completely agree with you, but it's like I feel like the companies that were sort of quicker to embrace change are probably going to fare better, because a lot of these companies, the trouble they've gotten into is they've sort of been living like with their head in a hole all this time, thinking that like, oh,
it's still 1995.
Yeah, and like it's like all of a sudden YouTube is their biggest competitor and TikTok is, and they just thought like, well, people are still always going to love the high, big budget movie making, and it's like, no, actually, like everyone else just moved on to something else and left you in the dust.
All the Emmy nominated shows that they're talking about, and I don't know if the nominations have they come out yet or not, because I've mostly seen speculation.
No, not yet.
It's mostly the streamers and the cable and the few cable things that HBO and Showtime make. Those are the nods. Where's the network shows? And that's insane. And again,
I feel like with the exception of Abbott Elementary, there's
right. There's
work, and it's crazy. But by the same token, kind of like what you were saying about Tubi before, it's as much as it's changed, it's still kind of going back to this like the classic TV model, which is you're watching something with commercials and like, duh, like
Disney, Hulu, Amazon, all commercials. Does Netflix do it now too?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I mean, yeah, man. No. I understand. And again, I get it, and I don't blame you, because like you said, you got to make they really were short-sighted in this jump to get into streaming and not realizing that you might still need ads. And I don't know. It's interesting. And then of course the generations. I mean, you've got your local focus group in your family in terms of what they're watching and how they're watching it and stuff. So I don't know. Do they sit through commercials?
They do, because they know I'm cheap and I'm not going to pay them to skip all that. But I I love it because I like, if a commercial comes up, I'll go get a beer or
man,
or whatever. Like, and also like I can talk to my kids in between, and like, we watched Daredevil Born Again, and there was like the same stupid commercials for like Hims, ED, medicine. And I'm like, this is really weird that this is on Disney. But, my boys and I are talking about it and joking and like, bullshitting about all of it. And that's really fun. Like, we don't do the thing where I don't let them like watch a show and be looking at it. We don't do like the 2-screen thing. Like,
beautiful. Good
like
for you. Way to go, Richard. All right, good dear.
Recipe for destruction right there. But so like, it's nice to have those moments in between. And Tubi is my favorite streamer. Like, I wouldn't even begin to tell you the movies I watch on there. They're not great, but I like sitting through the commercial break because I look forward to the movie starting up again. It's like nice to have a little delay of gratification. It's awesome.
Well, again, much like they learned from Netflix, dumping everything out in one big clump. And all the other streamers are like, so we're going to go back to weekly because, you build up momentum and people are talking about it for a longer period of time. It's like the new toy forgot everything that made the old toy great. And really, and sorry, everybody, I know it sounds like sour grapes, and especially from the old man yelling at clouds from his porch. But that said, it kind of is true. And I really think these companies like, hey, it works? This. And it's like, yeah, we knew that in 1955, but good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, it's like that combination of short-sightedness and hubris, which is pretty much the entertainment industry. And
bummer. All right, Richard and I are bumming everybody out with our talk.
Sorry, we can talk about comics some more.
No, and I'm glad you brought up Born Again because I loved it as well. I thought it was excellent.
Oh, it's awesome.
Did you see Thunderbolts?
Loved it. I really was very moved by that. And, I studied psychology. My dad's a psychologist, like all this stuff with like Bob the Century and everything. I just thought was really, really well handled, and I found it very moving. And I'm back in, baby.
There you go. But I'm still with you on Tubi, man. And not only because honestly, the Scene Missing show that Gabe Hardman and I do, a lot of times we look for movies that are on either Tubi or YouTube as well, that are kind of orphan films that aren't streaming anywhere, and that is the place you can find them. And
Tubi has, I could be wrong, I feel like they've got some pretty good noir on there too.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and good westerns. I mean, we just did a thing on this western screenwriter named Burt Kennedy, who worked a lot with the great Bud Bedecker of the 1950s, and a lot of Randolph Scott movies.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and Randolph Scott, they tease about him in Blazing Saddles and stuff. But that said,
Randolph Scott. Yeah.
exactly, man. But that, it's he actually was a great western hero, and these are some of his absolutely best 50s movie that had that adult western, high noon and Gunsmoke feel to them. And that's another thing, man. A lot of those 50s and 60s TV shows, they were mini movies, and a lot of the directors of the movies of that era were also doing television. Andrew McLagan, but Bedecker himself did a couple episodes of Maverick.
I feel like Richard Donner started doing all that stuff too. He went from TV to features, obviously.
He absolutely did, man. I mean, the classic Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, the Twilight Zone story. Richard directed that. He directed episodes of Combat, fantastic World War II drama with Vic Morrow. No, he was amazing. I blew it, man. Although I probably would have taken a lot of strings to be pulled, but Johns worked with Richard Donner, Jeff Johns, for years, and even they Donner even helped co-plot some fun Superman stuff in the early 2000s.
Oh, I have them. There was the cool thing where they went to the Phantom Zone and it was in 3D and it was beautiful. I think it was Adam Kubert art, Andy Kubert.
No, Donner was great, man, and he was so matter of fact. I did this shit, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I made The Omen, yeah, whatever. It's like, all right, man, you're a genius, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Talk to my wife, the producer. She really knows what she's doing. So yeah, man. Here, another comment from Kari. Kari, I didn't know you did a B movie. Carrie, excuse me. I always want to call her Kari because of the spelling. The B movie podcast I do ends with a wheel spin to choose the next terrible movie. After that, we announce whether it is to be or not to be.
If it's a terrible movie, it's to be for sure. I've been watching. Last night I watched On Deadly Ground with Steven Seagal, directed by
Sure.
I hadn't seen that one in a while. I rewatched The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone, which was shot in Miami. And actually, so I'll take it back to Scoop, if you'll indulge me. In
Please.
Volume 3, Sophie's friend Milo has an internship on a movie. He's a PA, and it's very loosely based on The Specialist. And so, like, when I was a kid, I really wanted to work on The Specialist. I didn't know how terrible it was going to wind up being. But I was like, oh, it's Stallone, and it's a big budget Hollywood blockbuster, and they're filming it in my hometown. I was too young to do it. And when I was old enough to PA on a movie, they weren't shooting any in Miami, probably because The Specialist bombed so hard. And so that is why I wound up interning at CNN. My parents had a friend of a friend, and they're like, well, you can't work on a movie, but go work at CNN. They have cameras, movies have cameras, same thing, right? And I was like, yeah, that's tough. And it wound up being the most formative experience of my life. So
that's excellent, man. Specialist Sharon Stone and Rob Steiger.
Oh yeah, and Eric Robertson, James Woods, and it's
yes,
Rod Steiger.
No, I want to watch it again. Yeah, as the old listener.
Yeah, he like instead of saying you, he'd say Jew. Jew know what you do. Like,
oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. He's a Cuban kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, ouch. I'm sorry, man.
No, I mean, I remember seeing that in the movies with my friends, and the whole audience laughing. Not with the movie. Of course.
There's
one part where like Sylvester Stallone, to escape the bad guys, he's in a hotel room, and he's an explosives expert. So he puts these explosives on the floor of the hotel room and blows it up so that the hotel room falls off the hotel. But it's like, no hotel has like a hotel room that just like sticks out like a tumor from the side of it. And it just like, the effects were terrible. It all looks stupid. And
I got to watch it now, man. I haven't seen it in decades.
It's, it stinks. It makes Miami look bad. Like, it looks like this. I mean, it makes it look worse than it really is. Yeah, it's, I mean, I think it's very entertaining. I watch that at least once a year, but that's just me.
That's hilarious, man. You're killing me. That was great. All right. So I meant to ask you this earlier. Radio Dormouse wanted to know what your wife specifically did over at Adult Swim.
Yeah, she still works there. She's an executive assistant, and she supports one of the VPs there. He's pretty awesome. A lot of them are at the Annecy Animation Festival right now. My wife is not there. unfortunately, and I'm not there, unfortunately. But their Adult Swim is kind of killing it. They've got a lot of, aside from Rick and Morty, a lot of other shows that are pretty successful. It was kind of cool last year. We went to Comic-Con in San Diego, and like I've been dragging my poor wife there for decades now. Like back when I used to self-publish comics, way back when, she'd go there with me, and we'd be in Small Press or Artist Alley spinning booths. And my wife is very lovely, but is kind of like shy. And I would, if I had to go take a bathroom break or I wanted to go catch a panel, she'd be stuck back there at the booth, trying to like promote our comics to whoever was walking by. But last year we went, and Adult Swim had a big showing, and we were actually there like for my wife and her work, and I was like a kept man for the change. It's the best time I've ever had at Comic-Con. It was great.
That's excellent, man. We hit a nerve with the specialist. Mara remembers seeing it in the theater. It was bad.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a very angry sex scene between Stallone and Sharon Stone in the shower, as I recall.
It is the unsexiest sex scene, and it's like another ridiculous set that makes no sense, where the shower is like way bigger than the hotel room.
It's the same shower room that Rocky is in Rocky V after the Russian fight. We ought to do this. I remember a great place we ought to do this. All right. Yeah,
I
great
guess Stallone
slide.
just really likes showers.
Hey, honestly, great rebound on Stallone. Tulsa King, literally one of my absolute favorite streamers right now.
Look, I love Stallone, and I'll watch anything and I have watched everything he's in. He and Sharon Stone famously hated each other, and there's like a whole, like, you could just look it up. I think it might even be like in the trivia on IMDb, but Sharon Stone, I guess, contractually was supposed to get naked in this movie for this shower scene, and she did. Like, I hope my son's not watching anymore.
Sorry, man.
He's probably heard me talk about this anywhere, but she just decided she didn't want to do it anymore, probably because she realized what a turkey this movie was going to be. And so Sylvester Stallone is like, you can choose to not get naked on any movie you want, except not on my movie, or something like that. And so then
Charming.
Sylvester Stallone says he's friends with Michael Douglas, and Michael Douglas had been in Basic Instinct with Sharon Stone. So Sylvester Stallone asks Michael Douglas, "Hey, like Sharon's like, not doesn't want to get naked. What do I do?" And Michael Douglas said she likes tequila. Give her tequila. It's the grossest story. So Sylvester Stallone gets tequila, a specific kind, and gives it to. And he's like, "We did a couple of shots, and next thing you know, we were wet and wild." Or
wow.
Like,
wow, I love it. Oh my God. All right.
That anecdote is way more entertaining than the movie is.
All right. Expect Richard Johnson to put this on Bleeding Cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin your career, but
it wasn't going anywhere.
Come on. It's awesome.
I'll get any kind of coverage I can.
In the words of Joan Rivers, "Oh, grow up."
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. All right, Amaria says after Basic Instinct, all of her sex scenes were violent. I honestly don't remember, and I'm sure that's what the internet is for. If everyone wants to look, please don't put it in the chat. I don't care. But that's great, man, because I'm the one who brought it up. Come on. And again, because it's not a sexy sex scene. It's just kind of a sex scene that's there.
No, and they're also like doing it on the floor of the shower, and like, would you ever lay down on like a hotel room shower?
Exactly. Hey, I hope you don't mind. I had athlete's foot. I was in there.
Yeah, that's like even worse than the bedspread in a hotel room.
I know. Good Lord. I know. Can you imagine if your night vision goggles to see that would work in the shower?
Sure.
Yeah. Yikes. Well, that's what drains are for. Thank God.
Yeah.
You. All right. Richard, what a turn we've taken from your
I blame you, John. I just like to write about dragons and
I know
detectives.
Little extraterrestrial detectives and post-apocalyptic kid that wants to be a pulp detective. I understand.
Balloon After Dark.
We used to call it that when Fraction and I would have our fireside chats. We're Balloon After Dark. I believe Brubaker as well. So you're in good company. Yeah. Very funny, man. No, dude, I'm telling you, everybody. If I talk about a book, it's because I like it, and I can honestly say that about Scoop. They're on volume 3, and Richard is in the works with volume 4, and Tective also out as well, both from Maverick, a subsidiary of Mad Cave, and Richard's working on volume 2 of that. So neat stuff, my man. So
thanks for the support and the endorsement. It means a lot coming from you.
No, it's my pleasure, dude. We mentioned Daredevil Born Again. Good timing, because tomorrow afternoon, got to do the math. I believe it is 4 o'clock. All right, so it's 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Pacific tomorrow afternoon. John Romita Jr. returns to Word Balloon to talk, because he and Mark Miller have a brand new book that I'm sure he wants to talk about. But I'm going to force him to relive some of his greatest moments as well, as we talk about some of the great books of the past. So I hope you'll join us for that in the afternoon. And then in the evening, we'll do a Trek talk, because there's a lot of big Star Trek news. They announced that the good news, Strange New Worlds is going 5 seasons. The bad news is that's it. And by the way, the 5th season is only going to have 6 episodes. Okay. Oh, because 10 was far too taxing. No, again, these are the problems with the studios, especially a studio that's trying to be sold. So I get it, but I'm still angry. What are you going to do? So we'll talk about that at Doctor Who's End, and Billy Piper showing up, what the hell that all means, and a lot more tomorrow night on a all-new Trek Watch with the boys and me. So I hope you'll join us for that. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.